It's a mega week of new releases post Steam Next Festival, so we have a ton of games to go through, including a Toho game, roguelites, pixel art titles, some city builders, and much more. So let's begin with GODBREAKERS, a 1 to 4 player online co-op action title which has intense combat and various builds to experiment with as you work together to take down bosses. It's co-op action focused and will come down to the game feel of the combat, having, interestingly enough, cancelable animations, allowing you to chain dodges, strikes and abilities in fluid sequences. Key to all of this is an ability called a God Break, allowing you to use the strength of enemies against them, where the timing of using said ability will be critical. There will be different archetypes to unlock, which seem to be the character class equivalent, which becomes even more critical in co-op as you use complementary strengths to cover your bases and thus look like fun with friends. A charming roguelite symbol builder is Roulette Hero, in which every battle is a spin of fate as you use animal companions and probability to your advantage. Build your own roulette wheel by placing animals down, each with unique attack, defense or support effects, then spinning the wheel to see where it lands and what effects get triggered or comboed together. Also critical are cartridges and stickers, being the equivalent of relics and upgrades with an awesome cartoony look, following in the footsteps of Luck Be a Landlord and Cat God Ranch and should be great. This video is brought to you by Berserk B.I.T.S, an auto-battler idle RPG that lives on your desktop where you go about your day, where your digital battle intelligent teammate, or BIT, fights viruses, levels up, and collects chips, even as you work on documents and spreadsheets, check your email, or browse the web. Coming to us from the developer of the pixel art action platformer Berserk Boy, and where that game takes inspiration from Mega Man X, this instead has more Mega Man Battle Network DNA, with Digimon, Digivice, and Tamagotchi inspiration. Collect over 100 battle chips and combine them into decks of skills, attacks, and buffs which your BIT uses in combat, gradually becoming stronger as you unlock new and more powerful chips. You have a home base to upgrade and customize with decorations, and can even import your own sprite work to personalize your BIT's appearance. There's a main story campaign, side missions, boss fights, and more, being no mere idle game, but has a narrative thread as you attempt to figure out who or what is behind the escalating waves of viruses threatening the net. If interested, their free demo for the Steam Next Festival is live right now, so try it, wishlist the game, and look forward to the release on November 20th. The developers are running a competition during the Next Festival where if you reach level 25 in the demo, you have a chance of winning your very own customized pixel art bit created by them for you, so join their Discord to find out the details. The Majesty games fascinated me as a kid since I was used to playing RTS titles like Age of Empires or Command & Conquer, but to have no direct control over your units was novel then and still kind of is in today's day and age, with Lessaria Fantasy Kingdom being the next game to use this setup. You are shaping a fantasy realm, building your own thriving kingdom, but instead of direct command and control, you're instead playing with incentives to get the outcome you want. You are constructing buildings and expanding districts, so standard city building stuff, but have to use gold to influence heroes and adventurers, directing them to explore or fight monsters provided the price is right. The developers are also saying that this is no mere clone, but rather are making the game as if it was the third entry in the series, a spiritual successor of sorts with ideas of their own, such as a new combat system, hero squads, and more, where I'm pretty tickled by the Warcraft 3 looking aesthetic as well, so it definitely has my attention. At this point, developer Future Lab is a good sized team and have graduated out of being indie, so to speak, but they did have very humble beginnings, going back to games like Velocity Ultra from 2013, with the original PowerWash Simulator being a massive hit that resulted in crossovers with Final Fantasy, SpongeBob, Warhammer 40k, and even Wallace and Gromit, whose mega success enabled them to grow the team, and they are back with PowerWash Simulator 2. This expands the strangely satisfying world of virtual cleaning into something bigger, more interactive, and surprisingly layered beneath its calm surface, as you take on contracts to wash everything from muddy off-road vehicles to graffiti-covered buildings, using a growing arsenal of tools to clean every level. The familiar rhythm of rinse and review returns, but now there are multi-stage jobs, such as having to clean interiors in addition to the exterior, along with new tools like going into a cherry picker to work at height. Between jobs, you have a home base to decorate and customize, and can even invite friends over, along with pet cats, looking like a bigger, better version of the original with fancier graphics, and should be a no-brainer pick. My newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. Crown and Adventure is an impressive-looking open-world adventure RPG reminding me of Wandering Sword due to the pixel art and ancient China setting, but one that leans more in the Three Kingdoms direction and with more fantasy elements like monsters, having large-scale strategic battles, hero recruitment, and kingdom building. You explore a vast map leading your own army in large-scale clashes, where the opening shot of this trailer instantly got my attention. Combat is in real time, where you're timing the use of skills and abilities, using it to turn the tide of battle at critical junctures. There are over 50 characters to recruit, over 8 classes, which can then lead smaller groups within your larger army, with the overall composition determining battle outcomes. The larger strategy layer involves you managing cities as you expand and take over territory, where you need to build structures, manage diplomacy, and ultimately conquer the world, looking very good and will be for strategy game fans. Other games begin with Age of Warbots, a physics-based sandbox battle simulator centering on transforming robotic war machines and programmable AI warfare. So while not quite Transformers, it's somewhere in the ballpark and looks neat. You're designing and building custom warbots by choosing components and configuring their in-game AI behavior, putting them in combat arenas where they battle and transform. There's a choice of automatic combat, or where you can take direct control, with the interactivity extending to the physics in-game, which could lead to interesting results. If you're not the designer type, you can also deploy pre-built warbots or to browse community creations to import them into your Steam workshop, and looks very cool. There's a campaign mode where you assemble units under budget constraints, with sandbox mode, of course, removing such constraints, looking to be similar to Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, and I cannot wait to see how far this transforming robots idea will get pushed with this game. We also have the 1.0 release of Becastled this week, a city building tower defense title that will have been in early access for more than 4 years, so this is a significant milestone. Having gained almost 5,000 Steam reviews as of recording, which is very impressive. You are managing and constructing your settlement by day and defending it from assaults at night, having a similar kind of duality to the gameplay loop, but it does extend across time and seasons as well. You spend daylight expanding your castle, placing farms, markets, walls, and decorations to feed your citizens, boost morale, and to gather resources. Villagers work semi-autonomously, so your layout, building priorities, and happiness incentives shape how the economy develops. Once darkness falls, moon beasts besiege your walls, so use archers, siege weapons, and other defenders to fight off waves of enemies until dawn returns. The enemy grows stronger with each passing night, so your defenses need to match, having to strategize for the long term and to progress up the tech tree so that you can get access to more powerful defenses and troops. It has received recent mixed reviews, which appears to be some sort of update that broke the responsiveness of troops, so hopefully they would have gotten that ironed out by Thursday and could be one of the best games of the year. An interesting looking bullet heaven roguelite is Bermuda Survivor, one that adds in an exploration element which is different from the other entries in this space. You are stranded in the Bermuda Triangle and must blast through hordes of enemies, having to discover the secrets of the mythical location and to find a way out of it. It is still run-based, but instead of just throwing you into the action immediately, There is space to explore and for you to solve puzzles as well. Fight waves of bizarre monsters using melee or ranged weapons, and combine abilities to create synergies, making your way across the fixed map with hidden paths, doors, and shortcuts to discover. You collect resources, rescue NPCs, restore ruins, and unlock machines and shortcuts that persist between runs, so the meta progression here is not simply upgrading your stats. Each run reveals more lore and might open up access to new zones, driving you closer to solving the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle, definitely having new ideas, which is why it gets a mention. I was surprised to see Bulb Boy 2 Jar of Despair pop up in my email, since the original is a game from 2015, and I have not heard much about the developer since then, where this continues the twisted point-and-click horror adventure game and is a direct sequel. This new adventure begins with a foray into the dark basement to fetch a jar of gem, but things quickly go south and you have to figure it out. I love the art style and animations here, which is supposed to be inspired by 90s cartoons, having the basic concept of cute but spooky at the same time, choosing to focus on the grotesque details of these jelly monsters, and is perfect for this time of year. Cut That Wire is a tense multiplayer social deduction game where 4 players are trapped with bombs strapped to them and must cooperate to defuse, but one is secretly an imposter trying to sabotage the team. You play rounds of bluffing and minigames to root out deceit or to mislead others, then cast your vote to force someone to cut a wire. Each bomb has 4 wires, one of which is lethal, and one player, the engineer, can see one safe wire, but their identity is not public. You win by either eliminating the imposter or being the last survivor, and is part of a trend of table-based social deduction games and has potential. Darkenstein 3D is a throwback retro FPS that tosses you into chaotic bullet-dodging combat in World War II era locales with a grungy twist. You play as Hobo Guy, an American drifter whose dog was taken by enemy forces, and your mission is to fight through Nazi fortresses, caves, deserts, and castles to rescue him. Combat emphasizes raw gunplay with no cover mechanics and no aim assist, just movement, strafing, and sharp reflexes. Enemies are deadly and you're expected to dodge, flank, and use the environment to your advantage. You also have a rat companion fighting alongside you, which you can throw in the faces of enemies, along with grenades and other weapons in addition to your firearms. Of course, with the naming, this is definitely very Wolfenstein inspired, and will have 13 handcrafted levels with secret areas. The best part is that this will be free, so why not give it a go? An interesting roguelite dice builder is Dead Finger Dice, one that uses 1-bit pixel art to great effect, where you're on board a luxury yacht and have to play brutal games of poker dice against demon billionaires, betting your own fingers as currency. You roll 5 dice with up to 3 re-rolls to form the strongest poker hand, betting your fingers against opponents in what looks to be rather gory animated sequences, where it is run-based and you will die, only for the next sorry soul to take your place. However, there is meta progression in the sense that you can stash resources for future runs, along with a crafting system where you mix materials and collected fingers to augment and create special dice. There are also charms and curses for the dice to rig the game in your favor, with a narrative and mystery element as you read through emails, find clues, and decipher a codex leading to multiple endings, being another entrant in the gambling-adjacent roguelite and could be huge. I don't know if you would consider this patch to be indie, since there's a who's who list of voice actors in this game, so definition aside, this narrative-driven superhero workplace comedy is pretty hyped for good reason. This flips the usual save the city script by putting you behind the desk where you play as Robert Robertson, once the heroic mecha man, now stripped of his suit and rerouted into a dispatch job where your task is to assign a ragtag roster of misfit ex-villains to crises across Los Angeles. You have to be strategic when dispatching your crew, since each event demands specific capabilities and character traits, so you must choose the right hero or pair for the task. Between missions, there's a whole world of characters created, with branching dialogues, relationships at the office, and more satirical and emotional beats in the storytelling, as you deal with the absurdities of managing people who used to be supervillains. This, of course, is very Telltale coded in design, but adds a little bit more gameplay in the lightweight management aspect, having a wonderfully varied cast of characters and will be for narrative game fans. An insane looking game is DREAMOUT, being a surreal, tipsy action-adventure game where you play as a drunken alpaca stumbling through a bizarre dreamscape full of weird quests, strange creatures, and hidden lore. Zelda this is not, but you are still exploring 2D environments, solving puzzles and fighting enemies, but can also collect 30 funny hats, throw bombs into portals, fish out odd items from rivers, and fight enemies like watermelon thugs or infernal chickens, being the exact kind of weird that I love to see. Every quest has a twist, and the world's strange logic encourages experimentation, so drink everything you find, blow up rocks, uncover secret passages, and come across strange creatures like carrot men or drunken butterflies. It might not look like the most polished thing, but it's strange and quirky, so if you're in the mood for the absurd, this will be a title to get. Feeding Serenades is a cozy top-down exploration adventure game where you play as a young courier, hiking across an island to deliver parcels, help the locals, and gradually uncover a deeper mystery. You traverse the world by running, jumping, climbing, and keeping your balance over rivers and ledges while managing a limited backpack that feels fast, which makes movement harder. So yes, indie Death Stranding, maybe? The core gameplay loop is about delivering items, some mundane, some strange, which then expands out as you take on various requests from the other characters, layering in mini-games as well. As you progress, you unlock new paths, explore new regions, and meet curious characters whose secrets nudge the story forward, telling a tale of vanishing traditions, the mystery of a missing scientist, and the tension between progress and preservation. I love the pixel art look, and a more involved walking sim does sound interesting, almost being the hidden gem of the week, but I have another title later on which I want to shout out as well. An impressive looking SRPG is Fantasy Maiden War's Dream of the Stray Dreamer, probably weirdly translated, but hey, that comes with the territory. Set in Gensokyo, where you command a roster of more than 70 Toho heroines through grid-based battles. You begin by choosing your protagonist, either Shrine Maiden Rimu or Magician Marissa, with either choice having an impact on the story, then recruit allies to help as you take on missions tied to supernatural disturbances. On the field, you position units and use movement, attacks, and abilities, with animated combat sequences showcasing battles, spell attacks, and dramatic spell card finishes when units clash. They have found some way to introduce bullet hell elements even into an SRPG, where enemies can activate cards that create timed danger zones or powerful effects unless you defeat them quickly, adding a sense of urgency to a turn-based title. There's an extensive intermission screen filled with gear, skills, squad compositions, stats, and much more, so you can min-max to your heart's content, looking very ambitious. Of course, the pixel art character sprites are a highlight, as is the overall look and presentation of the game, looking like one of those classic Japanese tactical RPGs and will be for fans of the genre. A fun-looking sports title is Hoopland, a 2D side-scrolling basketball title with some arcade inspiration in the simplification of the game, but layers on additional mechanics and systems. The action is dynamic as you take direct control, using moves like ankle breakers, spin moves, step backs, and alley-oops, and also has physics to add a little bit of unpredictability to every shot. There is a career mode where you create a player fresh out of high school, choosing a college, building up your reputation, then declaring for the draft and entering the pro circuit. There's also a franchise mode where you run a team, scouting prospects, drafting rookies, trading veterans, and managing your roster over multiple seasons. And finally, there's also Commissioner mode, which lets you operate at league scale, setting rules, approving expansion teams, choosing award winners, and growing the sport, looking like a fascinating sandbox simulation title, being very impressive for an indie title, so let's see where this stacks up. A very pleasant looking exploration title is Ila, a Frosty Glide, where you play as a young witch in training, gliding across a snowy magical island on a skate broom to uncover secrets and to find her missing cat Coco. You explore a small open world using your glide mechanic to traverse terrain, reach high ledges and uncover pathways hidden by snow and mist. Find collectibles and unlock various upgrades which enhances your aerial control, allowing for longer glides, sharper turns and easier access to previously out of reach zones. Learn more about the island through journals, environmental clues and character backstories which will tie into Ila's past and her relationship with her family. There's no combat here, so I suppose it falls into the cozy category of games. And hey, it's getting close to winter time, so you might want to save this frosty adventure for when the snow begins to fall. A game which looks very Hades inspired is Lone Soul, a fast-paced hack-and-slash action roguelite where you play as Varus, a fierce conqueror journeying through a mythical tower to rescue a previous conqueror trapped within before her soul ends up in eternal darkness. It looks well made and polished with fluid combat that rewards combos with additional control options like dodge cancels to keep the character responsive. Rune-based skills lets you craft new builds in every run, allowing for variety, from glass cannon style characters to tanky survivability focused ones. Curiously, they only mention 3 floors of the tower, which I take to mean 3 biomes, each with unique enemies and hazards, and culminating in the boss fight, so we'll have to see the total amount of content. There's meta progression between runs and something called the Gate of Challenges, which you need to crank up the difficulty on if you want to get the true ending. Looking like a well-made but perhaps uninspired one of these, given how many of you seem to be sick of roguelites these days. After a little bit of a delay, we also have the release of Misery, a co-op survival game set in a bleak post-nuclear landscape where every sunrise brings new terror and every resource is precious. You and up to 4 allies scavenge through irradiated ruins, abandoned labs and twisted wilderness to find food, materials, weapons and parts for your bunker, which serves as both safe haven and staging ground for more ambitious expeditions. By day, you explore and gather resources, and by night, anomalies, mutated creatures, and other armed factions threaten everything you have set up. It's similar to Fallout, and has potential, but it's kind of weird in that stalker kind of way, with the expected crafting and upgrade systems as the main forms of progression, where you make better tools and sturdier armor to help you on your journey. Weirdly enough, this is framed as a roguelite where every game begins with a mad scramble in which you have 60 seconds to grab whatever you can and make it to the bunker, with, I believe, some sort of endgame objective to get to an extraction point to get to safety. The developer wrote to me and is like 19 or something, so this is crazy impressive, and judging from the numbers, looks like the next big thing. Painted in Blood is a retro-inspired horror FPS set in the haunting realm of the twisted nightmare of an artist, where every corridor feels alive and every shadow could hide something that wants to kill you. Fight through twisted galleries and blood-soaked halls using an evolving arsenal of weapons, looking to lean more into the shooter end of things with a horror aesthetic rather than a horror game with shooting, if that makes sense. There's a sanity system which does have an effect on gameplay. As the world becomes more distorted, the worse your character gets, triggering unexpected horror events which you then need to deal with. Interestingly, this has pixel art enemy sprites but 3D weapons and environments, mixing art styles as was done in something like Proteus, but much less rip and tear for sure. Still, it looks cool and trippy with intense gunplay and combat and will be for shooter fans. Speaking of grimdark shooters, Painkiller is a reimagining of the cult classic FPS set in Purgatory, where you're on a mission to slaughter demons, proving your worth to the creator as you attempt to stop the impending demonic invasion of Earth by the fallen angel Azazel. This new version has turned it into a 4-player co-op game, although single player is still viable, having 4 distinct characters to choose from in Ink, Void, Sol or Roach, each with their own perks that influence health, damage and energy management. Kind of weird given the history of the franchise, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The one thing that I remember about the Painkiller games are the innovative alt-fire modes, and that makes a return here. also adding mobility options like a slide, dash, hook shots, and aerial momentum, letting you zip through the levels at alarming speeds. There's a tarot card system, which grants ability enhancements, adding more complexity to the combat and can be comboed in interesting ways. The campaign mode is joined by the Rogue Angel mode, a roguelite variant with handcrafted randomized arenas, but they do seem to be going full live service with this title, including various skill packs as well as a season pass, so the modern game industry comes for classic titles as well. A sweet looking open world pixel art action adventure RPG is Pale Coins, where you begin with just an old weapon, with your goal being to find the legendary champion's coin. Combat is tight and punishing, almost Souls-like in some ways, as you find the right window to unleash your attacks, then slide out of the way to avoid getting hit. There's plenty of options between melee, ranged and magic weapons, each with distinct feel and stat requirements, used to defend yourself as you explore the forest, ruins, caverns and dungeons scattered across the map. Exploration is more involved as well, with hidden pathways, puzzles and NPCs to stumble upon, also having what seems to be an extensive skill tree with plenty of equipment, stats and loot, being an RPG in every sense of the term. Of course, gigantic unique bosses will be part and parcel of this experience, looking excellent and is the hidden gem of the week. I love me some tower defense, so Relic Guardian Tower Defense has my attention, one that looks very much like Kingdom Rush but still looks pretty fun. You play as Friend, a summoned guardian able to compress and relocate towers instantly using her mystical wish power, letting you change your defenses in real time as enemy routes shift and new waves spawn in, adding dynamism to the game instead of the more static place and fast forward kind of action seen in other games in this genre. Each tower type can evolve into advanced spirit towers, adding new attack effects and area bonuses that synergize when placed together, which also works with the ability to reposition towers, so you can see how things get interesting when considering all of these at the same time. There will be a variety of levels across different biomes with the usual tower defense considerations like flying enemies, so you need to be prepared and have the correct towers to deal with them. There are relics and sculptures that form the core of the upgrade system, along with various character classes for your heroine, having vibrant and wonderfully animated pixel art, and it's a no-brainer pick for fans of the genre like me. It's spooky season, which makes the timing of Riddlewood Manor pretty great, a haunted point-and-click puzzle adventure game where you enter a mansion that's literally trying to kill you. Armed with only your wits and a flashlight, you roam rooms in full 360 degrees, inspecting objects, gathering clues, and solving bizarre logic puzzles as the house rearranges itself, with Susie, the demonic doll, stalking your every move. The tension is unabating, since every move might trigger a trap or a fatal encounter, but death respawns you outside, and with your new insight and learnings, you can attempt the game again. Between the scares, you also meet absurd companions like an eccentric dragon and a derpy chicken, performing tasks like cooking breakfast as part of the story as you learn more about the twisted history of the Riddlewood family. There are jump scares in this game, but the developer has kindly added the option to forewarn you about this if you hate jump scares, having an interesting cartoony look in contrast with the genre. This next title has one of the most insane charts that I have seen being reviewed just before the Steam Next Festival, and immediately shot up the charts to be in the top 150 most wishlisted games on Steam, so if you have not been paying attention, RV There Yet will be one to watch. This is a chaotic co-op road trip friend slop title where you and up to 3 friends navigate a battered RV through dangerous backcountry terrain to reach Route 65 and to make your way back home. You have to manage the RV's condition as well as precious resources like burgers and medicine, and to use front and rear winches to drag the vehicle over obstacles, under overhangs and through rough terrain. Every player helps operate a different system, from steering to winching and more, so cooperation and communication are essential, especially under pressure. Along the way are various hazards, random events and environmental challenges that get thrown at you, getting more upgrades as you survive each leg of the journey, but fail and you have to start again. definitely following in the footsteps of games like Peak and seems like fun with friends. Speaking of co-op titles, one that looks a bit more serious is Species Unknown, one with a survival horror slant as teams of up to 4 enter an abandoned spacecraft to complete dangerous contracts while being hunted by an unseen creature. Missions vary in objectives, from securing objects, destroying key systems, and capturing anomalies, all while the monster stalking you changes its behavior to adapt to your actions. As you move through the dark corridors, you must gather clues, identify threats, tactically plan your route, and balance stealth against conflict with gear upgrades, better tools, and escalating difficulty, keeping you locked in until you complete the mission. The abandoned spaceship can seem claustrophobic, almost alien isolation-like, but then again, being a 4-player co-op horror title, think Phasmophobia, this might devolve into comedy as you and your friends get horribly murdered by the monster. From the developer of Cosmic Express and puzzle game geniuses Trackneck and Friends comes Spooky Express, a Halloweeny track-laying puzzle game where you run the Spooky Express, a ghost train whose passengers are monsters needing to reach specific destinations, having to consider the order in which you pick up passengers while also having to save the humans so that they don't become a snack. You plot routes by placing rails under various constraints such as no crossing and no backtracking off tracks, then deliver vampires to coffins, zombies to graves, and so on in order to complete the level. As with most puzzle games, new mechanics emerge as you go along, with new hazards, layouts, and passenger types which makes you rethink past solutions. The art is cute and cuddly, and honestly, if you love puzzle games, every single entry from this developer is worth a play. A cozy and probably hilarious adventure game is The Bench, where you play as an elderly man spending his days on a park bench, solving hidden object puzzles and commanding a quirky pigeon crew, gradually plotting an escape from the retirement home. You are exploring in first person, issuing commands to the pigeons where you can get them to collect items, distract other NPCs, or unlock new areas, while also engaging in minigames like newspaper puzzles, fishing, or chess. The pigeons are customizable and become essential to your escape in a manner similar to Untitled Goose Game, but with a different kind of bird, of course. It's kind of slapstick and funny, aided by the physics, and looks ridiculous in a great way and should be great for a couple of laughs. Another game which I considered for Hidden Gem of the Week is the Crazy Hyper Dungeon Chronicles, a 2D pixel art dungeon crawler with roguelite and arcade influence. Having a turn-based combat system and is an interesting mix of ideas. You enter the Hyper Dungeon, a labyrinth that changes every run, meaning that no layout, trap placement, or monster spawn will be the same. Explore step by step in classic dungeon crawling action, but with a real-time element with a QTE minigame where you have to time your cursor in a moving bar to get critical hits or perfect parries, with weapons and abilities affecting this mechanic. Select between 3 distinct playstyles in Destroyer, Explorer, or Solver, each offering unique strengths which affects how you tackle challenges. There's a crafting system, skill trees, deep customization systems, loot, and even a touch of humor in the writing, setup, and presentation, all with a wonderful pixel art style where I saw this up close at Gamescom Asia and it looks awesome, so I cannot wait to dive in. The Lonesome Guild is a top-down action RPG with cozy vibes, even if there is combat, about rebuilding connection in a world gripped by loneliness. You play as Ghost, a spirit who awakens without memories into a realm slowly being consumed by a creeping mist of isolation, having to form a Lonesome Guild by recruiting up to 6 misfit allies, each with their own stories, abilities, and quirks, and to use their strengths together to push back the spreading gloom. Combat is real-time and fluid, with dodge rolls and the ability for Ghosts to inhabit allies, temporarily boosting their power, which enables new combos. You'll switch between party members in both exploration and battle, solving puzzles, exploring ruins, uncovering secrets, and building bonds around campfires. These relationships are not just for show, since as friendship grows, this unlocks new powers and abilities, not to mention the emotional connection between friends, looking wonderfully cozy with a great message as well. The indie scene is killing it with horror titles, and this week sees the return of Tormented Souls, following up from the original from 2021, and stars the same character, Caroline Walker, as she ventures into the decaying town of Villa Hess to rescue her sister Anna, as compared to the creepy mansion setting of the first game. It's classic survival horror with scarce resources, fixed camera angles, limited saves, and tank controls, although the latter two can be toggled off if you prefer more modern feeling games. The town itself has various locations to explore, including a derelict shopping mall, an abandoned school, and a shadowy convent, so really hitting all the horror game locations, with exploration being key as you look for items and weapons, open locked doors and unlock shortcuts for easier backtracking, and face grotesque enemies using a combination of melee and ranged weapons. There's something supernatural going on, as our heroine can switch between realities, exploring alternative paths forward in the nightmarish The Other Side, as well as going back to the past to alter the present. They have absolutely nailed what they are going for and looks much prettier than their first game, so it's interesting to see the evolution of this developer and should be pretty great. Alright, fan service aside, UltraGirl Alters is a story-driven SRPG in which you are the manager for Alters, a virtual idol group outfitted in tokusatsu-style hero suits, tasked with battling monsters to save the city, while on the side having to build relationships with the members, resolve personal dramas, and to confront a shadowy corporation. The combat and narrative intertwined, with every battle echoing the pressures of idol stardom and corporate control, with your choices off-stage affecting the overall strength of your squad in battle. Strangely enough, there's a live stream chat element to the game and presentation, since battles take place inside a virtual world, and it's a full SRPG in the sense of having XP and leveling up, with a skill tree to progress up as well. There's also a social links kind of element along with the narrative, and is supposed to be a 40+ hour game and might be of interest. On paper, another highly anticipated title is Vane, a post-apocalyptic multiplayer survival sandbox where you're doing survival game stuff like scavenging for supplies, building bases, and defending your territory from zombies and hostile humans. The world evolves dynamically as seasons change and random world events ripple across the zone, with the enemy AI zombies reacting by sight, noise, and scent. You can customize the appearance of your character as you desperately manage limited resources and crafting materials, cautiously pushing outwards to explore. Nothing too crazy or innovative, looking very Rust or DayZ inspired, but there is still an appetite for games like this, and in a similar manner, will be an early access release with more content to come and could blow up in popularity as many of these survival games tend to do. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. Isopod, a Web spin-off, is a 3D physics-based platformer set in the same universe as Web, where you play as a tiny pill bug who rolls, zips, and slams through a sprawling Australian bush environment. You use a magnetic drive strapped to your back to swing across gaps, catch flying projectiles, or to ride power lines, combining momentum and terrain interaction to traverse levels. Not exactly the most realistic, but hey, this is a video game after all. You have to master the movement, rolling to build speed, then launching off ramps and maneuvering yourself in mid-air, all as you explore, unite your fellow bugs, and battle against the Fire Ant Conglomerate. There are collectible trinkets and cosmetic customization options for your shell, with a slightly more open world structure with areas to revisit, secret paths, and interconnected zones. Web was awesome in 2D, so it will be fascinating to see their attempt at 3D, looking like fast, fluid platforming that should be fun. An impressive looking over-the-shoulder 3D action game is Bounty Star, one that mixes combat, base building, and farming into a single experience. You step into the shoes of Clem, a war-scarred ex-soldier turned bounty hunter, piloting the customizable Desert Raptor Mk2 Mac through the Red Expanse while trying to deal with the ghosts of her past. Combat is high impact as you dash, sprint, and use both melee and ranged weapons, taking on bounties and hunting down powerful mechs and creatures alike. Between hunts, you return to your homestead and have to do farming and life sim stuff, such as maintaining and improving water and power lines, grow and cook your own food, produce ammo and fuel, raise animals and expand the infrastructure, providing a solid foundation for your next mission. There will be a variety of contracts to take on, from the simple eliminate all enemies to more nuanced objectives where you have to really think about your build and accessories. Usually, farming games are not that developed on the combat front, so this is a curiosity. And hey, who doesn't love some giant robots, so I'm definitely down for this. Decks of the Damned is a strategic roguelite auto-battler built around vampire armies, card management and base expansion, looking like Stacklands but creepier with more of a combat element. You begin by raising undead troops from skeleton, fiends and other monsters, equipping them with crafted gear or enchanted weapons and assigning them to frontline or support roles. Venture outwards to explore ruins, raid villages for resources, and grow your domain by night, then defend your coffin and castle from human counterattacks in the day. There are various vampire classes to choose from, each with different specialties, adding variety from run to run. This has previewed well in demos, using the compelling card stacking mechanics of Stacklands, but adding their own combat-focused spin on things, so if you love the card-based strategy sim, this will be of note. One of the most amazing stories in games is that of Crate Entertainment, formed from the ashes of Iron Law Entertainment, makers of Titan Quest, who then made their indie version in Grim Dawn, and in a very curious turn of events, pivoted to Farthest Frontier, releasing in early access in 2022, which is a mechanically deep survival city builder and is obviously very different from their ARPG roots, but yet this has over 20,000 Steam reviews and is doing very well for them, releasing out of early access this week. This game is about founding and defending a settlement on the edge of civilization where every season and decision can determine life or death. You begin with a small caravan of villagers and must choose where to settle, clearing land, harvesting timber and securing a fresh water source before winter arrives. From there, the focus shifts to building homes, managing production chains, crafting tools, and maintaining morale. The farming systems are intricate, requiring crop rotation and soil fertility management, for example, with hunting, fishing, mining, smithing, and other professions as well. As your town grows, raiders and wild animals threaten the peace, so you have to construct walls, train soldiers, and manage watchtowers, while also keeping your people safe from disease and famine. For the OG indie game fans, this reminds me of a little game called Banished, especially with the brutality of just surviving in this world, and it's super impressive that they managed to pull this off, but I guess it's full steam ahead for the Fangs of Astrakhan expansion for Grim Dawn after this, which should be excellent as well. The roguelite defense city builder has my attention this year, primarily because of The King is Watching, but also a handful of other titles, with Super Fantasy Kingdom looking to reignite that spark as you rebuild a fantasy realm under siege, with both city building management and wave-based survival. You gather resources by harvesting, mining, cooking, brewing, and farming, then construct buildings and upgrade your settlement, recruiting heroes to help in the defense, which will be critical when enemies attack. Hero units and spells are used to fend off enemies and looks very strategic, with an interesting looking expansion and base building element, which kind of reminds me of Heroes of Might and Magic, with that ultra minimalist pixel art which I absolutely love. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.